it was, I don't know, it was just really neat to go up there. And it affected my mom a whole lot. For me, it was just nice. It was nice to go up there. It was nice to see my dad's name actually in the stone. It was just, I don't know. It was good.
I can understand, that experience. I know from I've had the opportunity, the honor, several times to visit the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington D.C., which is one of the most powerful monuments out there because
Yeah.
it's that black wall with just name after name after name.
Uh-huh.
The last time I was there, I actually, just off the top of my head, could remember the names of 3 or 4 of the Vietnam era Medal of Honor recipients that I had written blog posts about. And they've got a directory there and everything, so I went and I looked up the names and wrote down the panels they were on, and I actually walked
Yeah.
along the wall and found all of them and took pictures.
Yes,
Um,
we did too.
but yeah, I can imagine that. I would expect for your mom it was probably also very, very touching because there were probably survivors, veterans, who she and your dad were friends with before he left.
There were,
Um,
yes, there were some. I think when we went up there, what impacted her the most was one of the functions, one of the dinners we went to. She was talking to somebody, and as soon as they heard her name, they said, "Hold on, don't move." And they ran to go get this young guy. And I'm not positive, so I'd have to check. But basically, he was there when my dad died, and it was very upsetting to him. And it had kind of always stuck with him. And he had just a couple graphic things that really had bothered him about it. And anyhow, he and my mom, I don't even know, because they spent the next 2 days just talking and sharing. And I don't know. I think that was meant something. It meant a lot to her and to him too.
yeah, and one thing I want to point out, pretty much everybody I think who will listen to this is familiar with October 23rd, 1983, which is the day a terrorist truck bomb destroyed the main Marine barracks there in Beirut. Your dad, of course, was killed a week before
Yes.
by a sniper,
Hmm.
and it's I can understand where having attention paid to you guys, I think it probably touches you guys a lot because it'd be very easy for your dad and the others who died other than on October 23rd, 1983 to be forgotten about simply because that one event in October of 83 was just so dramatic and
Yes.
so, seared in everybody's memory. I mean, I was 12 years old. I remember when it happened. I remember, I don't remember what day of the week it was, but I remember a news report or something. Yeah, I think it was a Sunday, you're right. I remember seeing a news report. That is right about, I'm thinking that might be right after cable TV showed up in my hometown in New Jersey. So I may have seen something on the early iterations of CNN or CNN headline news.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I remember it very, very well. I was in 7th grade, I think it was, that I figured out. And, that's just when they start talking about current events and stuff in your social studies classes and everything. So, I was well aware of what was going on. I guess the other thing that I wanted to, sort of ask you about, and this is something I've touched on in some of the things I've written. Um, I'm assuming that part of your sense of loss has to be involved in just asking, what was it for? Um, I know from, and I'll clarify that a little bit. I know from my friend and co-host for the Tuesday night show I do on VLR, who's Crystal Schoonveld, who's a U.S. Air Force veteran herself. She's a current military spouse. She deployed to Iraq during the combat operations there. Obviously, she was in the Air Force, so she wasn't out, carrying a rifle, engaging insurgents,
Right.
but still went through, mortar attacks, rocket attacks. She has some PTSD issues. She also has a service-related back injury that she deals with.
I didn't know
But just, speaking to her, she has the sense of, what the heck were we over there for? Because it's all being lost. None of it was, none of it, there's nothing that the people who went to serve can really point to say, lasting, wow,
Yeah.
look at what we did. And, certainly your dad and his comrades were thrown into a situation that they probably should never have been in. With the history of Beirut, and we could probably, between the two of us, we could probably go through and recount almost page by page the book that was written about it called The Root, which
I
was
couldn't. I've actually never read the whole thing.
Oh, really? Okay.
I haven't. Isn't that
Well,
all?
I have. In fact, I need to find my copy of it. I've been digging through the boxes and boxes of books I have, and I haven't found it yet. But it's a great narrative of everything that went wrong with putting a reinforced infantry battalion into the situation where they're peacekeepers and they're set in between three different groups who want to kill each other. And since you're in the way, they're going to kill you too.
Exactly.
And that just never works.
Right.
It's if people have to shoot over you to get to the people they want to kill, they just are probably going to shoot through you, and that's sort of what happened. But I sort of rambled there a little bit. But does that ever enter into your mind? What was it for?
You want my honest answer, and my honest answer is no. It doesn't. Well, no. Ultimately, I think that. I mean, if I'm thinking about the situation, then yes. If I'm thinking politically and like, well, why? What good did this do? And should we have done this? And how should we have handled it? But if you're just speaking to me about my dad, then no. The biggest thing in his life was that he was a Christian. And before he went over there, my mom was pretty upset that he was having to go, and he apparently, two things that he told her were, one was that he was in God's hand, and until God allowed him to die, nothing could touch him. So he told her that he was invincible, and if anything happened, then it was okay because it was part of God's plan. And the other thing, that this part I actually did struggle with when I was younger, and it was that he said that if it came down to him and another person, another man who didn't know the Lord, that he hoped that he would go and give the other man longer to possibly become Christian and get to know God. That I had a hard time with when I was younger. But actually, through the years, and I'll have to double check, but I want to say that we know of 2 people that actually became Christians after watching my dad and after he died. And anyhow, so I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you're politically, no, it didn't make any sense, but I don't really have any. I'm at peace with that.
The strength of faith is for those of us who understand what you're getting at there.
Okay, thank you.
because I mean, there will be people who listen to this who maybe are nominally Christians or who don't get it.
Right. Yeah.
But no, I understand exactly what you're saying, and there is that incredible sort of sense of peace and sense of freedom
Yeah.
from having that faith, which is it gets you through so much. You reminded me of, I believe it's a story that's told in the book The Root, of another. It was not your dad, but it was another Marine who was a casualty, I believe, in the days preceding October 23rd. And the Marine who was seriously wounded and I believe wound up dying was a Jew, and the chaplain that was available was a Southern Baptist or some sort of non-denominational Protestant, and he pulled out the chaplain book and did the Catholic or last rites on the Jewish Marine, and it was just sort of that story of how in the moment you don't know what to do, but the chaplain. Who, of course, since it's a Marine unit, the chaplain would have been from the Navy, did exactly what he needed to. Now, when your dad did deploy, you were in North Carolina at the time, and that's when you moved to Florida, correct?
Yes. I'm pretty sure that it was supposed to just be while he was over there, because my mom was she was, I don't know, 7 months pregnant, 8
Right.
months pregnant. And her family was down here in Pensacola, and that's where she and my dad met. And anyways, so she just came down here, and we were living with my grandparents.
So that was probably, I mean, obviously having family around certainly helped, I'm certain.
Had to have.
And you stayed.
We did. We went, I don't remember when, maybe, anyhow, at some point we went we went home to North Carolina, and Mom took a few months there, and then she was ready to come back home. So after that, we moved back down, and this is where we are. And actually, my brother and his family are down here too. He was in the Coast Guard and all over the place, but he got out and he's down here. So we're all still here.
Good. I've been down there a couple times. Actually, it's been a while since I've been there. The last time I would have been. What? Oh yeah, absolutely. The last time I was there was on a business trip. I was there in, gosh, it was probably October or November of 2000. So ancient history at this point. But yes, I was down there to do an install on a project I was working on. I remember that trip very well because this is funny, and for the reason I remember it is because I missed my flight. This was back when US Air had a hub in Pittsburgh, so you could basically fly nonstop almost anywhere.
Nice.
But I missed my flight, so I had to get put on a different flight. Instead of flying direct from Pittsburgh to Pensacola, I went from Pittsburgh to New Orleans to Pensacola. So, like I said, I remember that very well. But I also remember on one of the down days we had when I was down there, we went to the air station and went to the National Museum of Naval Aviation.
Oh, you did?
So yeah, so that was neat.
Yeah, I think it's impressive.
It is a great museum. It's not quite as impressive as the National Museum of the United States Air Force, which is in Dayton, Ohio, at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. That's mainly because the Air Force has much larger planes,
And more money.
and well, probably more money and more of them. So,
True.
but yeah, it's a great museum down there. If my original plan for my life had worked out and I had not gotten peace dividended as an officer candidate for the Marines in 1992, I was going to be an aviator. I was going to fly as